Do you think that when Taiwan declares independence and China takes it as a red line, a casus belli, decides to invade Taiwan, do you think that U.S. will go to war with China over Taiwan?
Well, let me try and address a number of questions that are implicit in what you're asking. First off, I don't think Taiwan needs to declare independence to get China's attention. Taiwan is independent. Taiwan is a functioning, independent country and has been for quite some time. Its people pick their own leaders. And in fact, if you look at a survey that a major Taiwanese university has done every year for the past 30 years, they ask citizens on Taiwan, how do you see yourself? Are you Taiwanese? Are you Chinese? Or are you Taiwanese Chinese? And you'll forgive me because I don't have these figures exact, but the numbers are something like this. Over this 30-year period, the number of people who have identified as Chinese has gone from 26% to 3%. The number who have identified as Taiwanese has gone from something like 15% to 63%. And the number who say Taiwanese Chinese has gone from roughly 45% to 30%. The people of Taiwan see themselves as separate. Now you can say, well, that's not really accurate. They speak Chinese, they're still basically Chinese, it should be part of China. You know, you could say that. You could say that to Americans in 1776 too. You could say you're basically English, come on, speak the same language. It's not the way it works. So when we come to this question of the One China policy, the words of the Shanghai Communique are pretty clear on that respect. It said the United States acknowledges, let's just stop right now, doesn't agree. The United States acknowledges that all Chinese on both sides of the strait believe there is only one China and that Taiwan is part of it. We are nearly at the point where there are no Chinese on the island side of the Taiwan Strait, quite apart from everything else that came after the Shanghai Communique. So, coming to the immediate situation of strategic ambiguity, your question is very timely. Since yesterday, or Sunday, Europe time, President Biden was asked for the fourth time, if China attacked Taiwan, would the United States come to Taiwan's defense militarily? And he said yes. Now, of course, for the fourth time within a few hours, the White House said that doesn't represent any change in policy. So I think the White House is still endorsing strategic ambiguity because two different parts of it say two different things at any given time. The doctrine of strategic ambiguity was intended at the outset to enhance the credibility of an American deterrent, to leave China guessing what the United States would do. Now, strategic ambiguity is fine when it's managed by Henry Kissinger, but we don't have any Henry Kissingers around today in government to manage it. So to reduce the risk of mistake, I think the time has long since come to abandon the ambiguity and be clear, as President Biden has been, although his administration has not.
But instead of going to war or making a clear commitment to defend Taiwan in case it is invaded, isn't it going to be a smarter strategy to equip Taiwan with the capabilities to sink all those Chinese ships trying to cross the strait, and thus using China's invasion as an opportunity to halt the rise of China, to stop China's aggressive expansionism, and to engineer irreversible decline of China? Is it going to be less costly and smarter?
Well, the assertion of what the United States would do in the event of an attack on Taiwan is obviously not to invite the attack, but to deter the attack, to make it clear to China that the cost it would pay if it did undertake aggression, would be far greater than any benefits it could hope to achieve. That's what the language of Article 5 in the NATO treaty is intended to mean when it says an attack on one shall be treated as an attack on all. That should say to the Soviet Union, don't even think about it. And it worked. I think the same approach should be taken not just with respect to Taiwan, but all around the Chinese periphery in the Indo-Pacific. I think America's alliance structure in the region reflects the circumstances that we faced for a long time and that the countries in the region faced. I think it's different now. I think the Chinese threat is existential for the rest of this century. And if we don't have more collective defense, collective security arrangements in place, the Chinese will divide and conquer. I think that is essentially their approach. So they'd like to focus on Taiwan, and they'd like other countries to say, well, you know, two China, one China. If you asked in Japan today, I think a clear majority of people would say an attack on Taiwan is tantamount to an attack on Japan. And the idea that we can act singly and apart faced with the kind of threat that's emerging from China, I think is a mistake. I think if we don't have more deterrence capabilities, we will learn that lesson.